Welcome back, listeners. We are diving into our 50th, our 50-year celebration.
Y'all can't see me, but I'm diving.
It is head first, so that's good.
Yeah.
Starting off, 1973 movies. So, 1973, the U.S. pulls out of Vietnam.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. Yeah, finally.
January
1973, representatives of the U.S., North and South Vietnam, and the Viet Cong signed a peace agreement in Paris. I mean, if you're going to sign a peace agreement, where else would you want to do it?
Well, sure. Go to Paris. Not much of a peace agreement, though. Like, it didn't even, hold up for, like, a month, I think.
Like a second, yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's like, fuck this shit. Except for the U.S. We were, like, all about it. We're like, nope, we're sticking with it.
We're out. Peace out.
On March 29th, 2 months after signing the Vietnam Peace Agreement, the last U.S. combat troops left South Vietnam.
Yeah, fall of Saigon.
And we're so well treated when they got back home.
I know.
That's the thing about, I think we did, listen, shit happens, but hopefully you learn from it. I mean, I think one of the things that we really did learn from the Vietnam War is that even if you don't like the fact that the U.S. is involved in a war, it is not the soldiers' fault.
Exactly.
So don't blame it on them. I think we did a really bad job in Vietnam of putting it all on the people who fought. So not only did they endure all kinds of shit that gave them PTSD and lots of health problems and, missing limbs, etc., but then their neighbors were also spitting on them and it just got ugly. So let's not do that anymore. Please. We don't, but, just putting it out there.
Yeah, it became like a real dichotomy, people saying sort of like, fuck the military and, not separating like the person from his job. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm all about marching up and down Pennsylvania Avenue with a big sign. If you want us to get out of a war that we shouldn't be in, harass the politicians all you want. But yeah, as a military kid, it's not the people who serve. That's right. Shitty.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. At the same time, Hanoi freed many of the remaining American prisoners of war held in North Vietnam.
Including John McCain, who was famously in the Hanoi Hilton. That's what they called it. Jokingly, obviously.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Funny, but not funny, haha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The
I don't know why I know that. That was from that was from the real depths of my trivia knowledge. Rolling the back of my brain.
Will John McCain go down in history as the last good Republican?
Yeah, him or
good is very qualified, by the way. I do not agree with did not agree with many of his policy positions, but he seemed to be someone who was conservative in good faith and the country wouldn't have gone to shit if he'd been president.
Him or Colin Powell.
Yeah. At least you feel like you could respect them as people.
Yes.
Yeah, I just listened, it's a little bit of a tangent, but I just listened to a podcast where they were talking to Joe Lieberman and he was saying he and John McCain were really good friends. And you just kind of don't see that, bipartisanship friendships anymore.
Oh, could you? I mean, some of these asshole Republicans that are on the Hill today, I mean, I can't blame any Democrats for not wanting to go have a beer with Marjorie Taylor Greene.
No, but I mean, it's sad at the same time.
It is. It's very sad.
That's what it used to be is, yes, you were on, different sides, but you could go and have a beer or...
Well, but they were all American was the difference. Anyway, it's not a political podcast. It could be because we have opinions. But anyway, sorry, Matt.
The agreement was little more than a face-saving gesture by the U.S. government. Even before March 29th, the communists violated the ceasefire and full-scale war had resumed in 1974, but without American involvement.
I don't know. But now apparently Vietnam is the hotness to go visit. So it's word on the street.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's cheap. It's very welcoming. The beaches are apparently amazing.
And a burgeoning electrical car company in there, too.
All right.
Should be actually reaching American shores either late this year or next year.
Yeah. Vietnam is the hotness.
You heard it first. Right here on the Rewind Project, of all places.
Welcome to the Rewind Project, where Allie, Matt, and Eric take another look at your favorite milestone movies through the lens of our present day. Will it be a skip, rent, or buy? Stay tuned and find out.
Hello, hello, hello. Or should I say, bonjour. Welcome back to the Rewind Project.
Le day of le Jackal.
Jackal. Welcome back to the Rewind Project. I'm Allie.
I'm Eric.
Je m'appelle Mathieu.
Oh, very sexy. How do you say in French? Sexy. I always like when people speak French. I find it very sexy. We are talking about The Day of the Jackal, and we'll get into why we're talking so much French in a second. But this is our first movie of 1973. And I'm excited to talk about this movie. It was written by Kenneth Ross, based on the book of the same name by Frederick Forsyth, who wrote like 8 million books. Which I don't know that I've ever read Frederick Forsyth, but now that I've seen this movie, I am interested. I am, we'll talk about it in a second, but I'm like down the John le Carré, very similar-esque type of books and movies. And it was directed by Fred Zinnemann. I don't know who that is.
I don't either. He did a lovely job.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty good, pretty well directed. A handful of notable achievements for this bad boy. 1 nomination, no wins in the 1974 Oscars for Best Film Editing. 3 nominations and no wins for the 1974 Golden Globes, Best Director, Best Motion Picture Drama, and Best Screenplay. It was also nominated for a bunch of BAFTAs, but it did win 1 BAFTA, Best Film Editing. So when I queued it up on Amazon, it said, the BAFTA-winning film, The Day of the Jackal, up at the top. And I was like, that's all you just need 1 to say that.
There you go.
And the British Film Institute ranked this movie 74th on the greatest British films of the 20th century.
Okay.
Interesting.
I don't know when that ranking happened, but I thought that was an interesting.
Probably 1975. No, it was good. It was good. I don't mean to say that it was not, a good film. It's interesting. We talked about this a little bit before the pod. It's just, this movie was just, if you like spycraft, this is the movie for you.
Yeah.
If you like character development, you're going to find 2.5 hours of zero character development in this film. In fact, I'm looking at your cast list that we're about to jump into, Allie, and I remember who 3 of these people are.
It's so funny because I was like, I didn't know where to cut it off in my list of the cast that we were going to talk about.
It would have been 3, the 3 that I remember, because I just don't remember. So you're going to have to remind me who all these folks were when we get into it. But
okay,
anyway.
I think I know. I'm pretty sure I know.
See.
There's maybe one. There's
that's
one
data,
I maybe
because
don't
we
know.
all saw this movie in the last week.
Yes.
And that's really interesting.
There's maybe one I don't know, but you could probably tell me that one. So I think we'll be good. Ish. So the plot is, in the aftermath of France allowing Algeria's independence, a group of resentful military veterans hire a professional assassin codenamed Jackal to kill President Charles de Gaulle. All right, let's get into this cast. It's going to be some breadcrumbs, I'm sure, as we go through. Some quick. I did include the links just for that very reason. But first up is Edward Fox as the Jackal, also known as Paul Duggan and Per Lundquist.
He was fine. He was good.
I thought he was really good.
Nice exposure in some of the scenes. Although I kind of feel like, do you ever see that episode of Seinfeld where he's dating the girl that she looks great in certain light and then looks like really unattractive in other light? I kind of feel like he hit that a lot. Like some scenes, man, really attractive, and other scenes are like, oh.
So he's like a total Monet.
No, not a total Monet, because he was still up close hot. So it was, lighting is his friend. Good lighting is his friend. He was pretty good. I think he was with this movie, I found the movie very dry. As Eric said, there was not a whole lot of character development. So I feel like a lot of the performances were just kind of by the book. You don't get a lot of emotion from him. He just reacts. He plans and then reacts to certain scenario that happens. So there's not a whole lot to grab onto inside the movie itself. You're just kind of watching events take place. The most interesting part we get is, his 2 kind of little flings as he's hiding. But there's not a whole lot of real acting or character development there either. He just gets a little bit more menacing.
Well,
So
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know whether he has sex with those 2 people because he wants to or because they are convenient for him and they help him do his job. The second one is clearly he needs a place to stay and he doesn't want to show up on a hotel registry.
Yeah.
The first one, I'm not sure why he went after her. I don't know. Maybe he thought she was hot and just wanted to, play around a little bit, and he had a night to kill.
That was my
She certainly came in handy later.
Mm-hmm.
when he needed another place to crash and thought, oh, I'll sleep in her bed and, fuck her again. Okay.
Well, he looked her up. So I wonder if it was like, first he was attracted to her, and then when he went and looked at the register and saw who she was and maybe recognized her name and realized that she, lived in a big fucking manor, married to some big wig, then he was like, oh, now I'm going to go to her room. I don't know. I couldn't figure that out.
I thought he looked her up to find her room.
Oh, well, maybe that too.
He didn't know where she was staying, so he went and looked her up and thought, oh, she's in room 7. I'll go knock on that door.
The first night was convenient for him, though, too, because, he knew that people were starting to chase him down. It's entirely possible that they could have located him at that hotel during the night. So if he's not in his room, he has more time to escape when they start to search rooms.
Also true.
Yeah.
So I think it was both those relationships were really out of convenience.
But either way, the fact is we don't know. I think that in a lot of, we had talked about this a little before we started recording. This movie was remade as The Jackal in the late 90s with Richard Gere and Bruce Willis as the assassin. And Bruce Willis, in the scene that I watched on YouTube, totally played crazy, scary psychopath. The entire time. Like the entire time he was driven, he was menacing, he was, he just looked like he had a hair trigger. He was freaky scary. And this guy, Edward Fox, just played it and did what he did. And when it was time to kill someone, he was like, oh, I guess I have to kill you now. And then he just killed them very calmly. And I imagine, I heard Hannibal Lecter in my head, like his heart rate didn't even go up, when he did it, because he just did what he had to do. Like he's kind of a more realistic sociopath, but not quite as obviously scary, which was interesting. He was so good at his job. Halfway through the movie, I'm like, am I supposed to be on his side?
I was rooting for him. I did not want the police to catch him. I was 100%, and I feel awful saying that, but I was 100% on his side. He won me over.
Well, until we got to the next guy we're going to talk about, who was also really good at his job. And then I was like, okay, now I want him to be caught, because now we've got two worthy adversaries and one of them is going to prevent an assassination and the other one's going to kill somebody. So maybe I'll be on the side of the good guy. But it was a while before we got a good guy that you could actually root for. And so you were just following this guy around, watching him kind of in very genius ways plot this whole exercise and elude the police at every turn. And I tell you, I'm looking for character development. I think that's maybe a very American thing that I do, because at the beginning when he's in the graveyard and he finds a young boy who was clearly, died when he was 2.5 years old. And I looked at the dates and I was like, okay, they were born about the same time. But I immediately went, oh, this is his little brother. And this is why his parents were, grief-stricken his whole life. And he never got any love as a child. And I was going down this whole rabbit hole about why. Well, it also helps. I just read Hello, Beautiful, which is basically that's the whole plot of that book, too.
Sure is.
But I thought, he didn't get any love as a child, and that's what messed him up, and that's why he's damaged, and that's why he's a paid killer. No, he was trying to find somebody who died at 2.5 so he could get a birth certificate and fake it and get a legal passport that was completely fictitious. That's who Paul Duggan was. That was it. And I was like going, oh, this is going to be the secret. This is going to be the big emotional chasm that is revealed. No. It's just him doing what he does, which was interesting. I mean, it was an interesting take on I don't know that I want every single spy thriller that I watch to be exactly like this, because it would start to get real dry. But the absence of character development in this actually made this movie kind of interesting.
I mean, I was really bought into the Jackal. Like when he was on that train going to Paris, and it was like within 5 minutes of each other, and I was like, I was like watching like this. I was very excited. I was like, what's going to happen? And I was like, okay, well, I know he gets to Paris, so calm down. All right. Speaking of worthy adversaries, it was a very Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hanks sort of relationship, I think, between the two of these people. Maybe
I was going like Harrison Ford, Tommy Lee Jones, The Fugitive. That's where I was in my head.
Which I actually just rewatched that movie. It just happened to be on. That is a fucking good ass movie. Such a
very good movie.
I think that's Tommy Lee Jones' best role, personally. But again,
wasn't that his Oscar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michel Lonsdale as Deputy Commissioner Claude Lebel.
who looked so familiar. And when I looked him up, I couldn't find a thing that I knew him from.
Here's my thing that I didn't like is that a lot of these things, and I know that we do this in America too, a lot of these French people have British accents, and that was annoying.
That was weird. Yeah. Like you were kind of expecting them to so you would know what country you're in at a time, like if you're trying to catch up, and then you just kind of have to rely on the names as what's going on there. So I agree with you. It was really weird that everybody just had a British accent.
Yeah, and they're like, obviously the announcement was on English, on the television, and I'm like, okay, we're in Paris, like.
Well, but English speakers they feel very entitled, and I know several folks who will not watch a movie in a foreign language with subtitles. They just won't do it.
Yikes.
So, that's what you get. I mean, I remember everyone thought it was so weird when Dangerous Liaisons came out, and it was about a bunch of people in France, but it was an English movie, and everyone was weirded out that they had American accents. It's like, shouldn't they sound more British? And I'm like, that sounds so weird. Like, why should a French person sound more British than American? But I think it was just, this was Michel Lonsdale is a French actor. Clearly, he's fluent in English, and maybe he just has developed a more British accent because he's very good at speaking English, and he does it in the way that he was taught, which is probably by British people. Yeah, that didn't bother me.
Not so much. Some of the others, though, it took me out of the story a little bit. But
I think that if you had a whole bunch of people with French accents in this movie, it would start to feel a little Inspector Clouseau.
A little Pink Panther. But he was very good. I mean, there was a lot of... I
really liked him. I really liked him.
There were idiot assassins and there were idiot policemen, and so when he comes on board, you're like, okay, a guy who gets it, kind of a breath of fresh air. And
always was kind of 2 steps ahead at least of all the other policemen, but certainly also knew exactly how the Jackal thought, and so that was really great. I loved the scene where he located the leak. Right. And it was like, how did you know whose phone to tap? And he's like, I didn't. So I tapped them all. And everyone around the table was like, holy shit, what did you hear at my house? But they also couldn't argue because he was right and he found a leak. So what are you going to do?
And I love how the guy who was the leaker was he's like, okay, I am so sorry. That is my guest. Bye-bye. And I'm like, are they not going to detain him? Are they just I know that they used it to set her up later, but I was like, okay. He's like, and good day to you. That's kind of how that scene was.
Well, it felt very kind of, samurai code. I mean, did they all know he was going to leave the room and kill himself? Did he kill himself or did they kill him? As soon as I saw his body, I thought he killed himself. But then the cops were waiting for her.
So who knows?
So they were in the house. Did they take him out? Which maybe that was treason, and maybe they could have. I don't know. And did he really tell her, or was he just saying things in his sleep and maybe during the throes of passion, just giving away government secrets as one does?
I mean, it's definitely what I do in bed. Okay, next up is Delphine Seyrig as Colette de Montpellier.
Sexy older woman, I got to say. I mean, they cast this one really well because she was supposed to be a married woman of an important man who'd been married to him for a while. So she was probably, I'm guessing, in her 40s.
She had a 19-year-old.
And so that's not older. It's not old, but I mean, clearly, said the 52-year-old. But not an ingenue either, but sexy as hell. I was into her. I liked her a lot.
I didn't love the hair. That didn't do anything for me. But
I mean, 60s, what can you do?
It's true. But I did love the reveal that she was living in that manor, and you're like, oh, you're rich.
Oh yeah.
You're actually, and then I don't know. It was weird when he shows up, and I don't know. I felt was she interested? She seemed really reluctant, and then I feel like he kind of forced his way in a little. I don't know.
Oh, he totally did. I think. Look, the sex was good.
Sure.
Right. So she was fine, whatever. Her husband's away. I thought it was interesting that she's just going to have this affair in front of all the servants. But you know what? She's probably married to a guy who does the exact same fucking thing.
For sure.
Well, plus it's France, so I think isn't that a little bit more common?
Well, I don't think it happens more often. I think people are a little bit less embarrassed about it.
That's a better way to put it.
Yeah, a little bit more chill.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, Olga Georges-Picot as Denise.
who was the mole, the spy,
blah, blah, blah.
the sexy girl who. She was really good too. The single tear falling down the cheek as her. Now, was that the Jackal whose picture they were burning in her fireplace, or was that just some other random guy?
That is a great question. I was going to say no, but I don't know.
I would think not, just because I don't think they had any information on the Jackal.
No, because it was previous to them talking about the Jackal. I think,
but she was also on the side of the OAS. She was on the side of the quote unquote bad guys. She was on the Jackal's side.
I think it was somebody, like she was married to somebody and maybe he got killed or turned or got captured. I don't think
Or she was told to have an affair with him and she actually fell in love with him.
Or something, yes.
You know, something. But yeah, she's basically a spy / sex worker who needs to have affairs with, you know, men in high ranking positions so that she can exert. I tell you what. Using that dog to attack his horse, that was slick.
Yeah.
She was good, man. She knew she was good at her fucking job. She was as good as the Jackal. You know, #patriarchy. If we lived in a you know, more egalitarian society, this movie could have been about her.
But I gotta say though, like, how nice was that old guy that fell off the horse? Was he just enamored because she was so pretty?
She was a hot piece of, yes. Okay, that is exactly why he was like, oh, I'm fine. Maybe I can fuck you was his subtext there. Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
He was like, I just fell off a horse. Maybe I broke my back, but you're hot.
Yeah. You could make me feel better. No, if that was a portly man who had whose dog, he would have sued in a hot second.
That would have been like the Gwyneth Paltrow ski trial. I am suing you for $1.
Exactly.
You're a fucking dog. Well, the dog and the horse just take off.
Yes.
Bye-bye. There goes your horse. There goes your dog. Are they going to get in a fight? Like, what's going to happen? I was interested in that too.
Dog can't do much to a horse, but, you know, the horse can run faster. So I'm sure the horse just outruns the dog. And, you know, they're probably on an estate that this guy owns. So acres later, they'll run into a fence and they won't be able to get much further.
It's a sequel buddy film just about the horse and the dog. I mean, for good.
Right, Day of the Jackal 2, Horse and Dog. Or Day of Horse and Dog. That's what it is.
There's a whole other movie. You know, Disney's going to make yeah. I do want to talk about one other actor before we move on, though, only because it's the only actor that I recognized in this whole thing, is that Derek Jacobi is in this movie as Caron. Who is Claude Lebel's kind of assistant, the guy who, you know, he brings on to basically be his foil and kind of go back and forth with him. He's a very well-known actor. I mean, I know him from a shit ton of British stuff, but the thing that I mostly know him from, if you ever had to watch I, Claudius, the old PBS miniseries about the Roman Empire, he was Claudius in that. He was so good. And in later years, he came out as gay. So he's like a big in the LGBT community as well. I think he and Ian McKellen, I think this is right, did a kind of a sitcom as two bitchy queens who have been together for years and just kind of, you know, very fun. But yeah, he's great. And it was so fun watching him as a young man in this one. And he did a very good job.
Yeah, I was not as familiar with him, but, you know, looking at his history, he has done. He was in Gladiator.
Oh yeah,
I can't believe they're reviving Gladiator. That's
why
crazy.
It's
like Gladiator 2, Electric Boogaloo, like in the Coliseum. I don't know. It's like that's such a bad movie. Anyway, but he's good, Derek Jacobi.
Yeah, he was very good.
I thought the scenes with the two of them were really good because they were both like, you know, no sleep, coffee, cigarettes. You know, it did feel very like police procedural, which I liked.
I really wanted a cigarette when I was watching this movie.
Like, a lot of
everyone was smoking, and it looked very nice.
Yeah, and just, you know, like, just
but I did not. I did not go to the liquor store and buy a pack of cigarettes and have one and go, oh, this is why I don't smoke, and throw it away. I've done that quite a few times during the pandemic, and I did not do it this time.
Good for you. Smoking kills.
Also, my good friend who I still smoke with occasionally, he just went on Chantix and he quit. He hasn't had a cigarette in 6 months. So there goes my last supply.
No more friends. No more smoking friends.
Yep. No more. And menthols are now banned in DC. So there you go.
Are you a menthol guy?
You know, my friend who hooked me up with cigarettes and we would smoke on his porch, he was a menthol guy.
Ooh.
When
That's
I would go
legit.
buy my cigarettes at the liquor store, I never did. Tried to get a pack for him in D.C. when he was still smoking and could not get them. They are no longer sold in D.C.
I have a lot of vices, but smoking was never one of them.
I've been a social smoker my whole life.
Really?
Like when I was in college parties and stuff, if we were drinking and somebody's like, I'm going to have a cigarette, I was like, I'll join you. And I always could have one and then just
carry on.
Never have a craving. You know, it was just something that I could just enjoy and still could. You know, but usually, yeah, if I watch a movie that has a shit ton of smoking in it, I'm like, I want a cigarette. And then I'll go buy a pack of cigarettes and I'll have one and it's lovely. And then they just sit there and get stale and I throw them away. And now that it's $15 fucking for a pack of cigarettes, that is just like a huge waste of money.
You must have been really triggered by Mad Men, too. You smoke a lot.
Yeah, I was.
A lot of smoking in Mad Men. All right, well, moving right along to the actual point of this movie, which... kind of unsavory, very unsavory. Really, the whole reason for this story / movie is that soldiers and colonists, they were pissed that France gave Algeria independence after colonizing them in 1830.
Well, look, Allie, you were the one who was on the Jackal side. You just said
I was on the Jackal. The Jackal was not on, like, their side. He was doing a JOB for some cash money. So, like, he was a neutral party. He was the Switzerland of this whole operation.
Okay, the Switzerland who was still going to kill the president for freeing Algeria. Let's just,
I mean, let's not dial in the details here.
It's a detail.
I mean, I went on a tiny rabbit hole about Algeria in my research. But the war that they are referring to was started in 1954 by the National Liberation Front. Obviously, a group of Algerians who were like, fuck France for...
as one does.
All of the right reasons. And then the negotiations concluded with the signing of the Evian Accords. So perhaps they were at the spring.
Lovely water was served.
They were at the wellspring, which cracks me up, in March 1962. And basically, the colonization of Algeria by France is just as shitty as every other colonization that has happened in the world. They were cruel and savage, and obviously many people died on both sides, and colonialism just kind of decimated the country, and nobody looked good. But it's wild to me that like that's the reason for this. For the book, and then obviously for the movie, like this shitty reason, like you're mad because France finally gave their colony independence. Like it's just nuts. Almost 150 years after they colonized them.
Well, and we say, right, that's what the movie was about, sort of. Again, just as there's no character development in this movie, there's also no political posturing at all.
No.
None.
No, I mean, I had to dig deep to find all of this information because I was curious about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not like they're, marching down the street being like, fuck Algeria, in the movie. But I took the little bit of information that they gave and I went a little deeper.
That's a weird thing about this film is that there is no political intrigue, really. Like there's no debate, there's no tension between people. The entire movie is about them tracking down the Jackal as he's planning to kill Charles de Gaulle. Like the reason for them trying to kill Charles de Gaulle could have been any reason. They could have found out that, like he really wasn't like he had illegitimately become president, or like, he wore purple socks. I mean, it didn't really matter why they were trying to kill Charles de Gaulle. It's a weird thing now that when we're talking about it.
And the movie didn't even tell you, and told you the facts, but didn't even not one person said this is why or this is why not in a way that was meant to compel you either way.
Yeah.
As soon as I heard it's like, oh, they gave Algeria back to the Algerians, I'm like, I know what side I'm on.
Right.
Done. That's all I really needed to hear. But there could have been people watching this movie who were still pissed that de Gaulle gave Algeria back to the Algerians and maybe watched the whole movie hoping that the Jackal pulled it off.
Do you think they threaded that line purposely? Like so that they didn't take sides in the film and it was really just about the facts about what almost happened?
I think they did it purposefully. I don't know why. I think they assiduously avoided any kind of political posturing in this movie at all. Just like they avoided character development. I mean, you can't make a movie that's 2.5 hours long that's just about spycraft, that doesn't get into the whys and wherefores of either people or politics unless that is a deliberate choice.
Right.
But I don't know why the choice was made, other than maybe it was just like, that's what Forsyth did in the book. And maybe Forsyth just did it because let's see if I can get away with this and write something compelling that's just about the how it gets done and nothing else.
Well, it's also only 10 years essentially after, the Accord. So I wonder if it was just too fresh and you thought, there's going to be, if we take a side in the film, we could cause problems publicly for people, or we might not sell tickets. One or the other. And
listen, I mean, people in Europe, there are a lot of pro-colonial folks out there.
Yeah.
Probably still in 1973. So you're right. That might have been part of it. I mean, listen, we cut gay scenes out of movies so that they'll sell big in China today. Mm-hmm. So to think that Hollywood studios, or, I think this was not made in California, but, still film studios don't think about these things is probably naive. But at the same time, taking a look at like the realities of the French colonization of Algeria, it's hard not to take this side. I say, but then I know what side I'm on.
Yeah.
I've never talked to a pro-colonial person and heard all of their bullshit reasons why people don't deserve to self-govern. But, whatever.
I hope that I don't ever run into somebody like that.
Well, they're out there.
That's true. It's clearly then and still now. It's Brexit kind of was like that, so isolationism for sure. I found this movie, I love a spy movie, and this happened to be a spy/assassin movie. I'm fascinated by the whole spycraft of it. I have obviously been to the Spy Museum and spent many hours just looking at all of the cool shit that they have in the Spy Museum. I feel like, all of the scenes where he's like setting up his little things, like getting all of the different passports and getting that crazy gun, and like knowing the right people and doing all of the things. I could watch 10 hours of that. I was hypnotized.
I did find it interesting, him going to the gunsmith to have a specially crafted gun made for him was actually interesting. And the minimal amount of weapons that he actually had, he didn't like.
No, he was all sleeper holds.
Yeah.
That he would kill people. It wasn't like he had, knives and other guns.
I mean, yeah, like today this would be an action film. I guess like the remake probably is more of like an action film. And he's probably got guns coming out the butt and like,
Oh, yeah. When he kills the gay guy that he was sleeping with, he pulls out an automatic weapon and fires 2 big rounds into his chest and blows him across the room. I mean, because it's subtle. American. Like, duh.
Subtle. So the craft was actually really cool. That was really interesting. The plotting that was going on, how he had to go to different people and to get different things with all the different passports and stuff.
Well, and half the shit he was doing at the beginning didn't even pay off until the very end of the movie. Mm-hmm. I'm like, why did we have that whole conversation about the medicine that you take to make your skin look gray until the last scene of the movie? I'm like, oh, he took the medicine because look at him. Woo. Yike.
Well, and then he like pinned up his leg. I was like, "That's crazy!" Like, and because it was clearly like 3 stages of his plan.
Yes.
He was Paul Duggan, he was Pierre Lundquist, and then he was like old French soldier, amputated with an amputated leg.
And I love that they showed his leg cramping. And that he had to like work it out. I mean, because that's the other thing about an American movie. He would have just untied his leg and then ran up 5 flights of stairs because we're stupid and we would believe that somebody could do that.
Like, that's just crazy. I'm like trying to think about doing that with my leg. I couldn't do it. What is your favorite spy/assassin movie and why?
I had to think about this question, but when I looked up spy movies on Google, I scrolled and was like, nope, never seen it, hated it. And then there it was. I love this movie. And I'm such a gay guy because, of course, my spy movie like is this, femme fatale super badass chick. But have you ever seen Salt starring Angelina Jolie?
Fuck yes. Where is Salt 2?
That movie.
Love Salt.
So needed a sequel, but it was not a big enough hit, and they never. Such a good movie.
I love
and
Salt.
The twist at the end was like, holy shit! And I was like, oh, couldn't wait for the next one. And then
I saw it in the movie theater. I need to watch it again because I saw it when it first came out.
Good. Oh, it's so good. And the other one is kind of what we're talking about, is like the American remake of a European movie that was much more subtle, but I like the remake better because I'm stupid and American. Was Bridget Fonda, again, going for the badass chicks, in Point of No Return, which was the remake of La Femme Nikita. So, of course, in La Femme Nikita, she just, goes up to the hotel room and gives them, their room service that's got a bomb on the inside, and she just goes back home. Of course, in the American version, she's driving away, and we have to see the entire top of the hotel explode in the rear view mirror because we're Americans and we like to see things blow up. But that was a really, really, I enjoyed that movie too. But yeah, those are my two. Of course, I need badass chicks in the forefront of my spy assassin movies because it's Pride Month and I'm a big old gay. But there we go.
Matt, what's yours?
Okay, you're gonna laugh. If we're talking about spy films, it's actually gonna be True Lie.
I love True Lies. I could watch that movie on a loop too. It's a great movie.
I mean, the presence of comedy does not make a movie less than.
One of the only times that I've actually been able to stand Tom Arnold on screen. He actually is delightful in the film. And then the whole relationship between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis. They
have great chemistry.
Yes. I've always wanted a sequel to that movie with the two of them. I would love to see that.
And honestly, if you gave me a third choice, I would have picked Spy by Melissa McCarthy because it's so funny.
It is hilarious.
But I didn't think that was really the genre that Allie was asking about.
I mean, look, I love Austin Powers, Always and Forever. I've seen that movie 500,000 times. I can quote you the entire movie. And I say, when I'm backing up sometimes and I'm in that little space, I quote that movie probably on a monthly basis. But my favorite spy movie, because I also did the same thing, I was like, I'm going to scroll through a list, is Argo. That was a thrilling movie for me from top to bottom. I didn't know where it was going, and the fact that it's a true story and it was declassified is just, and again, a lot of setting up with the spycraft and the movie and I love that movie so much.
I have never seen
Good movie.
It's
a good movie. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a great rainy Saturday afternoon joint.
I mean, it shows up on the lists now of, did it deserve the Oscar kind of a thing, but because it won a bunch of Oscars, but it was a good movie. I mean, whether or not you want to get into Oscar politics, it's a good movie.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's an enjoyable. Ben Affleck's really good as in it as a director. Really, you're just kind of on the edge of your seat the whole time. Are they going to be?
It was
successful?
very tense. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I missed in this film. Is I never felt tension. I felt like we were watching a really good story unfold, but I never felt any tension. And so that was I was kind of hoping for in this movie.
I got moments of that, but more it was just about admiring this person's skill because LaBelle never really got close to the Jackal until the last bit of the movie. I mean, it's not like they were even in the same circles.
Yeah.
And he almost bumbled onto it. I mean, had he not talked to that policeman about anything, he would have missed the Jackal completely.
But he knew to talk to all the policemen about everything and not to restrict the search to, blondes of a certain age.
Yeah.
So I still gave him credit for getting his guy. It wasn't about that. And I have to say, there's something about watching some of these older movies, because realizing that in 1973, you couldn't see The Day of the Jackal unless you went to the theater, or you caught it on TV. But this was probably too violent to even put on a lot of TV. So it probably just kind of went away until the VHS came out, in the 80s. Watching it on a streamer, I did check every once in a while, how much of this movie is left. And I was always a little disheartened when there was still more than an hour left. But I think that if I'd watched it in a theater and I hadn't been looking at my watch, I would have just been engrossed the whole time.
Yes.
So it took me 3 tries to get through this movie. I'll put it out there.
But you fall asleep, right? Is it because you gave up because you were bored or because you fell asleep?
I fell asleep.
Well, there you go. I mean, Our friend Matt's a bit of a narcoleptic. For those of you who don't, if you're sitting at home watching a movie by yourself, even I've seen you fall asleep during good movies.
Yeah, but this one was a little bit drier. This was
a little draggy. Yeah, sure.
No character development and no political intrigue. You're absolutely right.
And no music.
Yes, and no music.
You said no score. There was a score during like the montagey bits, but never during a scene. I think that was like a low budget thing.
Maybe it was very. It took some getting used to for me that like when I realized, wait a minute, there's no background score to this. It seemed odd, but then I got used to it.
Well, and also I've mentioned this before, but if you like these types of movies or books, you should read John le Carre. I never know how to pronounce his name. And or see his movies. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy is a great movie.
Great movie.
Yeah. So, Gary Oldman. Okay, we have talked about sort of the difference between American and European movies. This was a true European movie. First up, Universal Studios wanted to cast a major American actor. Robert Redford, Jack Nicholson, both flown to audition, but Zinnemann was like, no, he secured a production agreement stipulating that only European actors would be cast.
Good for him.
I can respect that. Robert Redford would have been amazing in this movie.
Really
he would have
Jack
been
Nicholson,
not Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson would have been too obviously psycho. Like that,
right.
Just his persona would have preceded him. He's a good actor. He can play lots of different kinds of things, but there's just something about his menacing glare would have been a little bit too much for this. Robert Redford would have really played against type to do this, and he would have been really good. And I say that, and I have absolutely no quarrel with Edward Fox. He was great.
I thought he was really good. Yeah.
It's hard to even say great when someone's playing somebody with zero character development. He just, but he was good. He was good. Kept you guessing. The fact that we don't know still whether or not he was even attracted to either of the people he slept with in this movie is just an interesting data point that tells me he walked a real fine line.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A lot of ascots, too. He was a real dandy. But again, was he...
But only one ass shot, sadly.
Ew, not enough ass shots. Obviously, this movie was shot in Europe, which was also very fun for me to see, like, Europe in the 60s or 70s. Like, just, what has changed, what's not, seeing, like, the inside of those hotels. When I first went to Europe, you would stay in those sorts of hotels. Now you really just don't anymore. But it was interesting because Zinnemann was able to get into locations that people were mostly denied because the French producer, had, like, knew all the right people. So they were able to shoot, like, inside of the Ministry of the Interior and, like, actual places in Paris. So
they shoot inside an actual bathhouse then?
Yeah. Maybe.
Oh, wow.
Oh, they just have those saunas on the lots of all these film studios. They just went to the,
Yeah, maybe those are all actual, real people who go to the baths. And
I have to say, I called that one immediately. As soon as he said, "Is there a Turkish bath?" and I went, "He wouldn't. He is," and he just did. Okay.
Yeah, it was a real. It was a real. I didn't figure it out at first, and then when they were talking, he and the guy he went home with were talking. I was like, "Oh, right, he needs a place to stay that's not a hotel." Kind of genius.
See, I didn't even get that until they said that later. I just thought, "Oh, he picked up a dude." Okay. And then the next scene, LaBelle was like, "He's not on any hotel records." And I was like, "Oh, that's because he's smart." The Jackal.
The Jackal. That damn Jackal. And then I love this story is that apparently the actor who played de Gaulle really looked like de Gaulle. And when they were shooting in the parade, that's the, I think Bastille Day parade, people were very confused. They thought they were seeing a ghost. They didn't realize that a film was being shot. They mistook the actors for paying police officers for real officers, and many of them tried to help the suspects that they were apprehending in the crowd. Like, it was a real cluster.
Oh, gee.
I am an actor. Leave me alone.
Yeah, because de Gaulle had died a couple of years previously, so they were like, wait, what?
It's like you're walking down D.C. and you see Ruth Bader Ginsburg wearing one of her dissent collars, and you're like, oh, shit.
Wait, what's going on? So, yeah, I think I thought that was funny. Okay, guys, ready for some fun facts?
Sure.
Absolutely.
All right. It was kind of hard to find fun facts for this, but they're pretty good. The special lightweight rifle that the Jackal concealed in a crutch his car, and a couple of other places, was a genuine working model. 2 of them were made for this movie. One was handed over to British authorities. Weird. And the other now resides in the Paris Cinematheque.
Huh.
Is that like a film museum in Paris?
Probably.
Okay.
Probably. But that's kind of cool.
That's cool. That's actually a working model.
I know.
Wow.
It was really interesting to see him like set it up and, hit the watermelon in the forest. That was fun. And then we've talked about the remake, but the reason it's named Jackal and not Day of the Jackal is because Frederick Forsyth and Fred Zinnemann were like, fuck no, and they fought to make sure that the movie did not bear the same title.
Because there's characters in the new one. Apparently Richard Gere in the new one, he's brought in because he knew the Jackal as a young man and could, it was this whole personality profiler kind of angle. And like I said, Bruce Willis just played the whole thing like, hello, I am a psychopath, like the whole time. And I saw the clip. There's a clip on YouTube where he is talking with the gay guy that he picks up, which, by the way, is played by Steven Spinella, who's an actor I really like, but he always plays gay men. He was in Love, Valor, Compassion, and he's done a couple of... You've seen him. You might not recognize the name, but you've definitely seen him. And he's basically like, I thought we were going to go out tonight. I thought we were going to and he's like in total boyfriend mode, and Bruce Willis with his bleached hair pulls out an automatic weapon and blows him away. And it's just like, what the fuck? I mean, so American. Yeah. And it's, I can see why these two guys were not happy with that movie.
Yeah, they were basically like, I do not want anything to do with this movie. And then last but not least, during his scenes with the Jackal, the arms supplier Ghazi was wearing a black armband. This may be to honor Pope John 23rd. I had to do my Roman numerals math, who died in June 3rd, 1963. So it's like a nice little
historical
touch. Yeah, because they were in Italy. So
okay. I mean, were the papists very much pro-colonials as well, or was this just another guy who had a job who was just doing his thing?
Probably the latter.
Okay.
But I don't know. Who could say?
But, nice historical detail. It's like, we've got an Italian, arms supplier. He should probably be Catholic. This is what he would be wearing on June 3rd, 1963. So, okay.
Yeah, I like that detail. All right, game time.
It is game time.
Game time. Game time. All right, this game is called History Repeats Itself. We are taking... Sometimes I really just get in the weeds in these games. Also, this
I think
is the
sometimes you
game.
come up with a fun name for a game, and then you build the game around what you've called it. That's my theory. Because you always have the craziest names for which I love.
Also, this is the 4th game in a row that I've done, so we're running a little on empty. We are taking another historical assassin attempt. Why not? Successful or not, you could choose. And we are making a movie about it. So what is compelling about this event? Actors, directors, medium. Matt, I am going to start with you.
Okay, so assassination attempts aren't really a body of knowledge that I know a lot about. So I did have to do some digging.
Of course, that's exactly what an assassin would say.
Oh, interesting.
And I found one that was actually kind of interesting for me. So Giovanni Falcone, he is an Italian judge who is actually murdered by the mafia, assassinated because of an ongoing case regarding the mafia. So this happened in the late 80s, and I'm always up on a mafia film. Like I love those. So I figured an assassination attempt with mafia would actually be really cool. And this all takes place in Italy, so we'd get some really great scenery and stuff too. So
the mountains or the men or both?
I
don't have to pick.
Father, son, and House of Gucci.
We're not going down that road, no. Giovanni Falcone is going to be played by Paul Giamatti. I'd like to see him play a good guy again. Finally, I mean, he's really been like doing all the bad guys.
He plays a lot of assholes. He does it very well, yes. But I do like him as an actor.
Yes. Giovanni Brusca is the actual... There's a lot of Giovannis apparently in Italy. He was the hired assassin. I was going to have that played by Adam Driver. I feel like he got a raw turn in Gucci, so let's give him another shot.
He's another Italian chance.
Yeah. And then Salvatore Riana the head of the Sicilian Mafia, or like the top boss of the Sicilian Mafia who ordered the hit, would play by Robert De Niro. And actually, if you look at a photo, Robert De Niro kind of looks like him now.
Is Robert De Niro going to have time, though, because he's having a child at the age of 83, along with his friend Al Pacino. Both of them are new fathers in their 80s. Nothing to do with your movie, Matt. I just had to bring that up because, I don't know.
So fucking gross. It's so gross.
Yeah.
I will die on this hill. Like, fucking disgusting. Get a
Evolution
vasectomy.
should have taken care of this. Like, you know,
Yes.
I think that men and women deserve orgasms after a certain age, but their little swimmers should not work anymore after a while.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Well, there you go.
Yes. Perfect way to put it. And then I was going to have the movie directed by Sofia Coppola. I know The Godfather 3 is not really well enjoyed, but I think she actually is a pretty good director.
She's a very good director.
She's a great
Large
director.
body of work, so she can make it for Godfather 3.
She just won't give herself a cameo.
Yeah. So this is kind of like a redemption film for a lot of these
Redemption
people.
film.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. Eric, what do you got?
Okay, well, my movie is going to be called Wolverines! !
Oh.
Because it's about the Wolverine Watchmen, who are this far-right group of assholes who just a couple of years ago attempted to kidnap and maybe murder, I don't know what they were planning on doing with her, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Do you remember this story?
I do. And Wolverine Watchmen is like the most incel title for
Isn't
a group
it?
of, like, it's like the most incel.
Yes. The horrible people.
I thought you were going to make a Marvel film here for a second.
No.
honestly.
These guys probably think of themselves as Marvel superheroes, but they are
patriots.
nowhere close. So unlike The Day of the Jackal, I'm going to spend a little bit of time with the subject of the assassination plot. You know, we talked about the actor who played Charles de Gaulle just a minute, but he had no lines, and he was only seen from a great way off in this movie. But I miss this actress, and I think that she plays smart women so well, and I would want people to see just like how smart and charming and fun Gretchen Whitmer really is. So I would have her played by Patricia Clarkson.
Oh, so good.
Who I just adore. Which, you know, she'd have to get the haircut and, like, you know, dye her hair brown. But I think she actually would look pretty similar to Gretchen Whitmer. What I'm realizing as I cast these things is that no one is the right age. I'm always casting people who are way older than the people they should be playing because, you know, I don't know many actors in their 20s. But anyway, the ringleader of this whole nefarious plot is this guy. His name is Adam Fox, and he just looks... I mean, you know, typical neck-bearded, like, you know, sits in his basement and, like, hatches conspiracy theories. And I thought Zach Galifianakis could have such a great time with this guy. Barry Croft was the other kind of leader of this whole thing who is, I saw some pictures of him. It's kind of hard to cast. It's got an interesting look. But are you familiar with an actor named Walton Goggins?
I am.
Mm-hmm. He's a great character actor. I know him from The Hateful Eight, but he's done a million other things. If you ever watched Justified, which I never saw that show, but he had a big role on that. A lot of people know him from that. And then there was one guy in this whole menagerie of like 13 people. I'm just saying, let's just stack this cast, right? I mean, let's get Jonah Hill. Let's get Seth Rogen. Let's just get like all kinds of Steve Zahn. Let's just get all kinds of funny people who can be made up to a little quirky and a little weird. But there was one guy in this whole thing who was remotely fuckable. And I thought, okay, Justin Theroux, we're going to throw you a bone and get you in there as well. And I am going to have this whole Mishigas directed by Emerald Fennell, who directed Promising Young Woman. And I think she would have a great time in just kind of, you know, making all of these dorks just look pathetic in their completely 100% failed attempt to kidnap. And I might be stretching the rules a little bit because I don't know that they actually wanted to assassinate her. But I have no doubt in my mind that they would tell you to this day, we would have if the mission demanded it. Dorks. You know, at the director's chair of Wolverines! ! And there you go.
I love it. All right. Well, I am taking as per usual far to the other side of the world. I don't know why I am so interested in this, but it was the first thing that popped into my mind when I was writing this game. Is my movie is going to be about the assassination of William McKinley, who died creepily enough on my dad's birthday in 1901.
Oh, wow.
Your dad wasn't born in 1901.
No, but like his birthday, the day, the year and the day. September 14th, 1901. September 14th is my dad's birthday.
Okay.
48 years later. So he was at the Pan American Conference up in Buffalo, and his assassin, Leon, I am going to butcher this name, and I apologize, Zolzgols.
Sure.
Basically just like he was, pressing the flesh, shaking hands, and pow, just killed him right there. Full shot, 2 shots. This was the beginning of the Secret Service. So that was interesting to me, is that previous to this, even though 2 presidents had been assassinated, James Garfield and obviously Abraham Lincoln, there was no real protective service for presidents before this all happened. So I kind of like that as like a reason for this movie. But the justice was served very quickly. So they took William McKinley to the hospital. He basically died of like gangrene and blood poisoning pretty quickly. And then this guy Leon was arrested and then like charged and murdered all within the span of like a month. So American justice was very quick. But in my fantasy world, this is a play. Originally, that my fake play. It's going to be a fake play, and then they are going to make a movie of this fake play because I think it would be kind of a good play. So my McKinley is going to be played by Bryan Cranston, who, by the way, kind of looks very similar to, I saw a couple pictures and I was like, he needs to have a little bit of a paunch, but I feel like he could do it. And then my Leon is going to be Oscar Isaac. And I feel just like...
Okay, I'm on the side of the assassin already because Oscar Isaac is hot.
I just feel like the 2 of them, it's like a 2-person play, and then then the Coen brothers are gonna see this play on my fake Broadway and buy the rights, and they are gonna make this into, just like a movie, and it's gonna talk a lot about the beginning of the Secret Service and, kind of go into all of that. So maybe maybe the title will be like McKinley ! Or something like that,
The little I know of McKinley's assassination, I know from Assassins, so
yeah,
I can go for an entire movie.
There you go. But we're going to make an entire movie. So, yeah.
Bryan Cranston and Oscar Isaac, I am so there. Like, I would see that movie in a heartbeat.
I feel like that's a good combo, the 2 of them. Bring a lot of gravitas. All right, well, hire us for all your assassination movie needs, because we're good at it. All right, we are... finally to our skip rent or buy portion of the evening. Skip means I wish I had never seen it again. Fuck the Jackal. Rent means I am glad that I saw it again. I don't need to see it again. Maybe this didn't need to be 2.5 hours. And buy means I will definitely watch it again. And I can't wait to see more of Edward Fox's tush. Eric, where are you?
I am so middle of the road down the line Rent on this one. I am glad that I saw it. I enjoyed it. 0 character development, 0 political intrigue. Like it is what it is. I do not think that this would handle multiple viewings all that well, because I just feel like everything about this movie was right there on the surface and it was good, but I just never need to see it again. But I'm really happy that I saw it and I'd heard of it. And I honestly, I'll tell you, my expectations were not that high going into it, but I really enjoyed it. So yay, Rent.
Matt?
I'm torn, but I think I'm going to give it a skip.
Really?
As much as I do like the tush.
There'd been more tush. Matt would have,
Yeah, I mean,
Fair.
I found it very dull and dry. And so I don't know how you take an assassination attempt and make it slightly boring. So as much as there was some interesting facts that we got to watch the story go along, I was never kind of like bought in. I don't think. It never pulled me into the movie. I would say probably skip.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. I am also a very solid Rent. I picked this movie. I was not sure what I was getting myself into or what I was getting Matt and Eric into. But I was having some high highs and some low lows here on the Rewind Project. But I liked it. I was intrigued the whole time. Yeah, it did not need to be 2.5 hours, but I am absolutely thrilled that I watched it. Perhaps I will dive into some Frederick Forsyth in my book reading, because if this is a taste, I'm interested. I'm glad I saw it. I will probably never watch it again, but yeah, I did really enjoy it. So, for what it was. All right, well, this wraps up our episode here. Next up, we have American Graffiti, and I'm excited to dive into the rest of our 1973 season, which is going to be kind of all over the place. In the meantime, I'm Allie.
I'm Eric.
I'm Matt.
Be kind. Rewind.
You've been listening to The Rewind Project. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, and Google Play. Please subscribe and rate us. It helps a lot. We love your comments and questions. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and via our new phone number at 202-618-2402. Thanks for listening. Be kind. Rewind.